This is Mr. Eugene, and today we're examining something that will make many people uncomfortable, but discomfort with truth doesn't make truth any less true. Some women operate under a delusion so profound, so disconnected from both biological reality and spiritual truth, that it's destroying families, marriages, and ultimately their own happiness. The delusion is this: they believe that men are so lucky to have them that they can behave however they want and the man is still better off than he would be without her. They think their mere presence brings value to a man's life, that just by existing in his space, just by gracing him with their company, just by allowing him access to their time and attention, they're conferring benefit. Regardless of how they behave, regardless of what they contribute, regardless of whether they make his life better or worse. This is not just false, it's often the exact opposite of reality. Many men are objectively worse off with their wives than they would be alone. Financially worse off because she spends more than she contributes. Emotionally worse off because she creates more stress than she alleviates. Psychologically worse off because she tears him down more than she builds him up. Spiritually worse off because she undermines his leadership rather than supporting it. The fundamental problem is this: women have forgotten or deliberately rejected the divine order established at creation. They've forgotten that woman was created to help man, not the other way around. They've inverted the hierarchy that makes families function, and the chaos we're witnessing in modern relationships is the direct, predictable consequence. Today we're examining the biblical foundation for male leadership and female support, what happens when this order is inverted, why so many modern women actively resist their created role, the catastrophic consequences for families when divine order is abandoned, and most critically, what men can and must do to reassert proper order in their homes before everything collapses completely. This is not about oppressing women. This is about restoring functional order based on how we were actually designed to operate. And if that offends modern sensibilities, perhaps modern sensibilities are the problem. Stay with me. This is the conversation about family structure that churches won't have and culture actively suppresses. The biblical foundation, how God actually designed this. Before we can discuss what's broken, we need to establish what the correct design actually is. Not based on modern opinion or cultural preference, based on Scripture that explicitly tells us how families are meant to function. Genesis 2:18-23. The creation of woman, and the Lord God said, "It is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helper comparable to him." Let me break down what this actually says, because modern culture has worked overtime to obscure the plain meaning. It is not good that man should be alone. Man was created first. Man was given dominion and responsibility first. God observed that man needed assistance to fulfill the mandate given to him. Woman was created as the solution to man's need, not the other way around. I will make him a helper. This is explicit. Woman's created purpose is to help man, not to lead him, not to be independent of him, not to pursue her own separate mission while he pursues his, to help him accomplish what God called him to do. Comparable to him, this doesn't mean identical. It means suitable, fitting, appropriate for the purpose. A helper who can actually help because she's designed to complement his strengths and offset his weaknesses. Continuing in verses 21-23, then the rib which the Lord God had taken from man he made into a woman, and he brought her to the man. And Adam said, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man." Woman was taken from man, not man from woman. Not simultaneously created as equals. Woman was formed from man's rib. She is derived from him, created for him, designed to complete what he was already doing. This establishes the created order clearly. 1. God created man first and gave him dominion and responsibility. 2. God recognized man needed help to fulfill his calling. 3. God created woman from man and for man specifically to provide that help. 4. Woman's fundamental purpose is to be a suitable helper to man in his God-given mission. This is not cultural interpretation. This is not Paul's opinion. This is Genesis, the foundational text describing how God designed human relationships to function. The corruption, how women have inverted divine order now. Let's examine how modern women and modern culture have systematically inverted, rejected, and corrupted this divine design. The feminist inversion. Modern feminism has taught women to view the helper role as oppressive, degrading, and unacceptable. They've reframed God's design as patriarchal oppression that women must resist and overcome. The messaging women receive constantly: you don't exist to help a man, you exist for yourself. Your purpose is not defined by relationship to a man. Your purpose is self-actualization. Submitting to male leadership is weakness. True strength is independence. Traditional roles are oppression. Liberation is rejecting those roles. You shouldn't need a man. You should want a man only if he makes you happy. You're not supposed to serve him. He's supposed to serve you. Your career and ambitions should come first, family is secondary. If he expects you to help him, he's controlling and misogynistic. This is not subtle. This is explicit, constant cultural programming telling women to reject their created purpose and replace it with self-worship and independence. Entitlement mindset. Because women have rejected the helper role, they've adopted an entitlement mindset that inverts the entire relationship dynamic. Instead of, how can I help my husband accomplish his mission? They think, how can my husband help me accomplish my goals? Instead of, what does my husband need from me to thrive? They think, what can my husband do to make me happy? Instead of, am I being a good helper to the man God gave me? They think, is he being a good enough husband to deserve me? The entire framework has been flipped. She's no longer the helper. She's positioned herself as the one who needs to be helped. He's no longer the leader being supported. He's the servant whose job is to facilitate her happiness and self-actualization. The presence delusion. This brings us to the specific delusion we opened with. Many women genuinely believe that simply being present in a man's life, regardless of how they behave or what they contribute, makes his life better than it would be without them. This manifests as, you're lucky to have me, regardless of whether that's true. I could do so much better than you, emotional manipulation. You'd be lost without me, despite making his life harder. Any man would be grateful for what I provide without examining what she actually provides. You should appreciate me more. While providing minimal reason for appreciation, she's operating from the assumption that her presence itself is the contribution. That he should be grateful she chose him, grateful she stays with him, grateful for the privilege of her company, regardless of whether she's actually making his life better or worse. This is narcissism wrapped in female entitlement and sanctified by feminist ideology. The catastrophic consequences, what happens when order is inverted now. Let's examine what actually happens to families when divine order is abandoned and women refuse their created role. Consequence. 1. The man cannot lead effectively, and a woman refuses to support her husband's leadership and instead undermines, questions, and resists it. He cannot lead effectively. Leadership requires support. A general cannot command an army if his soldiers won't follow orders. A CEO cannot run a company if his executive team constantly undermines him. A husband cannot lead a family if his wife actively resists his leadership. This creates several catastrophic problems. He stops trying to lead. Why expend energy leading when every decision gets questioned, every directive gets challenged, every plan gets undermined? He retreats into passivity not because he's weak, but because she's made leadership impossible. The family drifts without direction. Someone needs to lead. If he won't or can't, either she takes over, creating matriarchy, which is dysfunctional, or nobody leads and the family just reacts to circumstances rather than being guided by vision and purpose. Children receive contradictory messages. Dad says one thing, mom undermines it. Dad establishes rules, mom overrides them. Dad tries to discipline, mom interferes. Children learn they don't have to respect dad's authority because mom doesn't. Consequence 2, she becomes increasingly unhappy. Here's the paradox that modern women don't understand. Rejecting your created purpose doesn't lead to happiness. It leads to profound dissatisfaction that women cannot identify or articulate because they don't understand its source. Women are designed biologically, psychologically, spiritually to be helpers and nurturers. When they fulfill that role well, they experience deep satisfaction. When they reject that role and pursue independence and self-actualization instead, they're fighting against their own design. This manifests as chronic dissatisfaction. Nothing is ever quite enough. The relationship never quite feels right. She can't explain what's missing, but something definitely is. Anxiety and stress. She's trying to lead when she's designed to support. She's trying to be independent when she's designed for interdependence. This creates constant internal conflict. Loss of respect for her husband. When she refuses to let him lead, when she undermines his authority, when she positions herself as his equal or superior, she cannot maintain attraction or respect for him. Women cannot be attracted to men they don't respect, and they cannot respect men they don't allow to lead. Resentment. She resents him for not being strong enough to overcome her resistance. She resents him for not leading despite her actively preventing him from leading. She creates the problem and then punishes him for the problem she created. Consequence 3, the marriage becomes dysfunctional when divine order is inverted, marriage cannot function as designed, constant power struggles. If both parties think they should lead, you have two competing authorities creating chaos. If she won't follow and he won't lead, you have no authority creating drift. Breakdown of complementarity. God designed men and women to complement each other. His strengths offset her weaknesses. Her strengths offset his weaknesses. When she tries to be him instead of being herself, the complementarity is lost. Sexual dysfunction. Women's sexual attraction to men is substantially based on respect and perception of masculine strength. When she doesn't respect him, when she's undermined his masculinity, when she's emasculated him through resistance, attraction dies. Dead bedrooms are often the direct result of inverted hierarchy. Inability to face crises together. When crisis hits, financial, health, children, external threats, families need clear leadership and unified response. Dysfunctional hierarchy means crisis becomes chaos. Consequence 4. Children are damaged perhaps. Most tragic, children raised in homes with inverted order suffer profound damage. Boys learn that manhood means weakness. They watch dad get overruled, disrespected, undermined. They internalize that being a man means being subordinate to women. This cripples their development of healthy masculinity. Girls learn that womanhood means dominance. They watch mom control dad, resist his leadership, get her way through manipulation. They internalize that being a woman means controlling and managing men. This programs them to destroy their own future marriages. Both learn that marriage is a power struggle. They don't see partnership. They see competition. They don't see complementarity. They see dominance and submission with the wrong person dominant. This shapes their entire understanding of relationships incorrectly. Spiritual development is impaired. If dad is supposed to be the spiritual leader but mom undermines him, children receive mixed messages about spiritual authority, about God's design, about faith itself. The root, why women resist their created role before we get to solutions, we need to understand why so many modern women actively resist the helper role that would actually bring them fulfillment. Reason 1, cultural programming. 4. 60-plus years, women have been systematically programmed to view traditional roles as oppression. Every movie, every TV show, every magazine, every social media influencer, every educational institution, all sending the same message: independence is empowerment. Traditional roles are oppression. Helping a man is degradation. Being a wife and mother is settling. This programming starts young and never stops. By the time a woman reaches adulthood, she's absorbed thousands of messages telling her that fulfilling her created purpose is actually betraying herself. Reason 2, pride and ego the helper role requires humility. It requires acknowledging that you're not the center of the universe, that your purpose is partially defined in relationship to someone else, that serving others is noble rather than demeaning. Modern culture worships self, self-love, self-care, self-actualization, self-fulfillment. The self is God, and anything that subordinates self to other is heresy. Accepting the helper role means surrendering pride. And most modern women, most modern people, are too proud to do that. Reason 3, rebellion against godlets. Be clear about what's actually happening when women reject their created purpose. They're not just rejecting social convention or outdated gender roles. They're rebelling against God's explicit design. When a woman says, "I refuse to be anyone's helper," she's not making a feminist statement. She's telling God, "I reject how you made me. I know better than you what my purpose should be." This is the oldest sin, pride that thinks it knows better than God. It's Eve in the garden all over again. And the consequences are just as catastrophic. Reason 4, ignorance of true fulfillment most. Women have never seen functional divine order modeled. They've never witnessed a wife who joyfully helps her husband and experiences deep satisfaction from it. They've never seen a husband who leads well and appreciates his wife's support. All they've seen is either dysfunction, domineering men who abuse authority, and weak women who suffer, which they're taught to call traditional marriage, even though it's actually a corruption of it, or inversion, men who've surrendered leadership and women who've taken control, which they're taught is equal partnership, even though it creates the dysfunction we've described. They genuinely don't know what functional divine order looks like, so they reject what they think it is, which is actually just bad implementations they've witnessed. The restoration, what men must do to reassert order. Now we get to the critical part, what men can and must do to restore proper order in their homes. If you're a man who has allowed your wife to invert the order in your home, whether through passivity, ignorance, or fear of conflict, let this serve as your wake-up call. Your family is not functioning correctly, and it's not functioning correctly for anyone, not for you, not for her, not for your children. You must reassert your leadership, not tyrannically, not abusively, but firmly, clearly, and consistently. Step 1. Understand your God-given authority and responsibility. You are not asking permission to lead your family. God gave you that authority and that responsibility. Ephesians 5:23, for the husband is head of the wife, as also Christ is head of the church, and he is the Savior of the body. You are the head, not co-head. Not conditional head, period. This is not a privilege you earn by being good enough. This is a responsibility God assigned based on created order. Understanding this is foundational. If you're uncertain about whether you have the right to lead, you cannot lead effectively. You'll be tentative, apologetic, easily undermined. But when you understand that God himself has ordained you to lead your family, your entire frame changes. You're not imposing your will on her. You're fulfilling the role God designed you for. Step 2. Communicate the new reality. Clearly, you cannot restore order silently or subtly. You need to clearly communicate that things are changing. Now, your communication style will vary based on your personality and situation, but the message needs to be clear and direct. Here's one example approach. Adjust language to fit your style. We need to have a serious conversation about how this household functions. I've allowed disorder to develop by not leading the way God designed me to lead. That ends now. I am the head of this household. Not because I'm better than you, not because you're inferior, but because that's the order God established when he created man and woman. You were created to be my helper, to support my leadership, not to undermine or replace it. That means when I make decisions for this family, those decisions stand. You're welcome to offer input. I value your perspective. But the final decision is mine to make and mine to own. That means when I establish rules or expectations, they're not suggestions for you to selectively follow. They're the operating principles of this household. That means you stop questioning my leadership in front of the children. You stop undermining my authority. You stop treating me like I need your permission to lead what God gave me to lead. I understand this is different from how we've been operating. I understand you may not like it initially, but this is not a negotiation. This is me reasserting the order that should have been in place from the beginning. You can choose to support this, to return to your created role as my helper, and we can build something beautiful together. Or you can choose to resist, in which case you'll discover that I'm willing to enforce consequences up to and including ending this marriage if you refuse to accept God's design for how families function. I'd prefer the first option. I want to lead well and have you support that leadership. But either way, I'm done allowing chaos in my home. This will shock her. Expect resistance. Expect pushback. Expect testing. But this level of clarity is necessary. You're not asking, you're informing. Step 3. Consistently enforce your leadership. Communication means nothing if you don't back it up with consistent action. This means making decisions and sticking with them. Even when she doesn't like them. Even when she complains. Even when she tries to go around you. Your decision stands, establishing rules and enforcing consequences. If you say, this is how we're doing X, then that's how X gets done. If she violates that, there are consequences, not tolerating disrespect. If she speaks to you disrespectfully, especially in front of children, you address it immediately and firmly. You will not speak to me that way. If you have a concern, you can express it respectfully in private. Leading family decisions, finance, children's education, major purchases, where you live, how time is spent. These are your decisions to make with her input, not joint decisions where she has veto power. Providing spiritual leadership. You lead family in faith. You determine church attendance. You establish spiritual practices in the home. You model relationship with God. Step 4. Expect and overcome testing. She will test whether you mean it. Count on it. The testing will come in several forms, direct challenges. You can't just decide that. I don't accept this. This is the 21st century, not the 1950s. Your response, calm restatement. I understand you're unhappy with this. The decision stands. You can choose to support it or not, but it's happening either way. Emotional manipulation, tears, claims that you're being mean, controlling, abusive, threats to leave, withholding affection. Your response, do not back down. I understand you're upset. That doesn't change what needs to happen. When you're ready to discuss this calmly, we can talk. Undermining, going around your decisions, contradicting you to children, doing the opposite of what you said. Your response, immediate consequences. I told you 10th you did Y anyway. That's unacceptable. Here's the consequence. Getting others involved, telling her family, friends, church people that you're being controlling, hoping they'll pressure you to back down. Your response, what happens in our marriage is between us and God. Outside opinions don't change what's right. The testing will be intense initially. She spent years conditioning you to back down. She'll escalate to see if you'll cave. If you remain consistent, calm but firm, unwavering but not cruel, the testing will eventually stop. Once she realizes you're not backing down, she'll either accept the new order or leave. Step 5. Lead well. Not just firmly reasserting authority is necessary but not sufficient. You also need to actually lead well once you've reclaimed your position. Good leadership means having vision and direction. Where is this family going? What are you building? What's the mission? You need answers. Making wise decisions. Your authority to decide doesn't mean you should make foolish decisions. Seek counsel. Consider consequences. Lead intelligently, protecting and providing. You're responsible for family's physical, financial, emotional, and spiritual well-being. Take that seriously. Appreciating her support. When she does support your leadership, acknowledge and appreciate it. Thank you for trusting my decision on this. Being worthy of respect, live with integrity, keep your word, be consistent, work hard, serve God, be the kind of man who deserves to be followed. Hashtag the biblical mandate, why this matters eternal. Let me close by addressing why this matters beyond just having a functional household. Ephesians 5:22-33 establishes that marriage is a picture of Christ and the church. The husband represents Christ. The wife represents the church. When a wife refuses to submit to her husband, she's not just creating marital dysfunction, she's corrupting the picture that marriage is supposed to paint of Christ's relationship with his people. When a husband fails to lead his wife, he's not just being passive, he's failing to represent Christ's loving leadership of the church. This is sacred. This is spiritual warfare. This matters eternally. Satan doesn't just want to destroy your marriage for the sake of destroying your marriage. He wants to corrupt the picture of Christ and the church that your marriage is meant to display. Every time a wife rebels against her husband's leadership, she's acting out the church rebelling against Christ. Every time a husband abdicates his leadership, he's portraying Christ as weak and passive. This is why restoring order matters, not just for your happiness, not just for functional household, for the glory of God and the accurate representation of spiritual reality. Final thoughts. The choice before you, if you're a man reading this and recognizing that your household operates in inverted order, that your wife doesn't support your leadership, that she behaves as though you should be grateful for her mere presence regardless of how she acts, that she's rejected her created role as helper. You have a choice to make. Choice 1, continue as you are. Accept the dysfunction. Let her continue leading, or let chaos continue reigning. Watch your marriage slowly die, your children absorb twisted models of masculinity and femininity, and your family fail to reflect God's design. Choice 2, reassert order. Accept the cost of that. Accept that she'll resist. Accept that it will be uncomfortable and difficult. But choose to do what's right even when it's hard. I cannot make that choice for you, but I can tell you what the consequences of each choice are. If you continue as you are, she will continue losing respect for you. Your marriage will continue deteriorating. Your children will continue being damaged by inverted order. You will continue being miserable in a situation that violates divine design. Eventually, the marriage will end in divorce, or you'll die having spent your life in dysfunction. If you reassert order, she will either accept her created role and you'll build something beautiful, or she'll refuse and leave, in which case you're better off without her. Your children will see proper order modeled. You'll fulfill your God-given responsibility, and whether she stays or goes, you'll be a man who stood for what's right rather than tolerating what's wrong. Both paths are hard, but only one maintains your dignity and honors God. The question is, will you be the man God designed you to be, or will you continue being the man culture has conditioned you to be? Choose wisely. Your family's future depends on it. Drop a comment about your experience. Have you reasserted order in your home? What happened? Are you struggling with this? What's holding you back? Subscribe, because this channel will continue providing biblical truth about family structure that churches won't teach and culture actively suppresses. Stand firm, lead well, and never apologize for fulfilling the role God designed you for.